Hi, welcome to the CAFMA Connect. I'm Training Chief Chief Merrill with you again. However, we have pivoted a little bit of our conversation we've been having recently here on the podcast. However, it's not going to be too far off the beaten path because we're still going to talk structure fires. But I brought two good friends of mine with me today. First of all, again, Engineer Russ Smith is brought to you by Guns N' Roses and America by this tattoo.
I'm just here for Mason.
And a new orange watch, so whoever that sponsor is. And then also we have my good friend Mason Siebe. So Mason has been on here before. Mason, we brought you on because you're a part of the Recruit Academy.
Right. You're
still on probation. How far deep into probation are you?
We're about the halfway mark right now. So
halfway mark.
June or early June. That's like five and some change. So 6 months coming up.
Yeah, awesome. So I mean, it's a good sign that you're here and you're invited on the podcast, right?
Right.
I think you just might make it that first year.
Count the days.
Yeah, he's got a little app on his phone to tell him when he's safe. So something that's fun is as soon as the recruits get off probation, you get introduced to the recliner. You've seen it in the station, you've cleaned under and around it, but you actually get to participate in the recliner activities with everybody else. That is like the one christening of like, you've done it, you've earned the first year completion, now boom, here's a recliner. So
the golden shiny chair after the 12-month mark, that's what we're shooting for.
Yep. So I'm excited for that moment for Mason as well as all of the other recruits. So a couple things before we get into the pod today. And yes, I just called it the pod. That's what I'm going to do. I'm going to start shortening words because when you have Russ and I on here, this could go for a while. So I'm going to try to speed this up by just shortening words. That's it. But I want to talk about currently CAFMA and the area is under stage 1 fire restrictions. So as I'm speaking about this right now, our good friend Kathy, hi Kathy, she's going to go ahead and post this on the podcast so everybody can see kind of the bullet points to what the stage 1 fire restrictions are. However, if you need further information, please go to cazfire.gov for any type of information, including recruitment applications, because yes, it is that time. It's summer for a number of reasons, obviously stage 1 restrictions, but also, we're hiring by the summer. Our fiscal year starts again in July, which means we get to start our next process. This will be the most recruits hired to date in CAFMA history. So I can't give you a current number because sometimes that number changes. And it depends on who you talk to. If it's Chief Rose, it's going to be a lot smaller of a number than if you talk to anybody else. However, we're very excited for what's to come because with every new hire you pick up, you're just evolving your culture. And this current batch, Recruit Class 24-1, is just killing it. They're doing awesome. This week, they're working on minimum company standards, which we talked about briefly last week in the podcast, if you want an explanation of what MCSs are. Next week, they do station rides. So all you crews that are watching this, next week, be ready. You got to train with them. They want to drill. They want to meet you. They want to, be a part of what you're doing in the daily activities. But, man, what a cool experience it is for them because they graduate on June 27th. And today's already June 6th. So,
Yeah, academies seem to keep going quicker and quicker, but we're trying to compile a lot more in each time we go.
Yeah, absolutely. And Russ, we're going to talk about the academy and your involvement here in just a second. But I do want to highlight that June 27th is graduation, and everybody's actually invited to that. So Mason, I think we'll probably see you there, right? Have you give a speech or something like that? Bring your 1-year-old beautiful little girl over and we'll have her give a speech.
She's working on it too, yeah.
Yeah.
To get her prepped up.
I'll give her 30 minutes if she wants. That's good. So another thing, though, I wanted to bring up is, as we're talking about the academy, is Russ, you've been very, very active in this current academy. So what are you seeing from this recruit class, this current recruit class, especially compared to like Mason's recruit class? Are you seeing any differences or similarities?
All the academies kind of follow the same format that I talked about before, but with this academy in particular, it's kind of, with the volume that we're hiring, I was expecting that we may have to spend a lot more time bringing everybody up to a bar, not only just with their skills and proficiency, but our expectations with the culture and their overall performance on the job. But in all reality, this academy, I'm seeing a lot of really good people out there. In fact, through and through, we haven't had any real personality conflicts or any, and everybody's showing up excited, ambitious, ready to train. So I'm really encouraged by this academy. Every drill I've been in with them, whether it's Denver drill, Pittsburgh drill, Save Your Own, those are my favorites. They're excited to be there and doing a great job. So I'm excited for them to hit the floor, for all of our folks out there on the engines to actually get to meet and know them.
And vice versa.
Yep. These are guys and gals that we'll spend the next, like I keep saying, 20, 25 years of our careers with. So.
No, that's awesome. And Mason, again, you're 6 months out of the academy, but you got to drill a lot with this good man right here as a recruit training officer. And then also big shout out to Russ and the good work that he's put in over the years amongst 4 others, but he's actually promoting up to an actual training officer this fall. So I don't know if that's going to change how much time he spends at the recruit academy. I know he doesn't want it to, but he's going to actually take on more of a role, and it's more pivotal in the growth of the actual organizations as we perform quarterly trainings with the engine companies on specific set drills that are quarterly. So every 2 months we change the topic to something else. But here he's been spending years working with the recruits at the baseline of their career, but now he gets to start working with people as they develop throughout their careers and promoting up. And how that translates to actual real-world incidents, as we've actually talked about recently with these legato fires, how quarterly training and our training officers have meshed into the success of that outcome of legato. But now here you are, 6 months on probation. Are there some things that you miss about the academy, or things that you've seen that translated from the academy to the engine?
Yeah, so certainly one thing that I miss a lot was just seeing our group. We had a really good group of recruits that were now on the floor. The 10 of us, we've remained pretty close. The last couple of weeks, or a couple weeks ago, we were up in Durango doing the Swiftwater Rescue class together, and that was just a blast. Just all of us.
Nobody drowned
again. Nobody drowned.
That's a success in itself.
It was a lot of fun. Just being able to be back with those guys again. But I miss seeing them all every day. Translating over to being on the floor on the engine. The academy is great, and I think that everyone's doing a really good job over there, and it's very. There's so much going on in the training. Every single day is jam packed with everything that goes on, but you can't teach everything. You got to get on the engine and get working. And I'd say like the day to day, the medical aids and stuff like that. You just can't teach as much as you want to train and do that in the academy. You just can't simulate real life the way that you go into someone's house and they're having a true medical emergency. The families, they're all stressed out, and it, is trying to calm down the situation. So I just say like the day-to-day, the medical aids. As far as the fire training, we're going to get into that a little bit more too. But I think having that Class A and the Class B, and as much burning as we did, translated over, pretty well, as much as it could at least.
Yeah, and I think that's one thing that we try really hard to do with our academy, especially is repetition. Mm-hmm. I'm very protective of any opportunities in the academy to get more reps and more reps. It only is going to benefit you later on when you're back on or out on the engine. And so when it comes to reps, we can simulate fake smoke with the Class B tower, and in the Class A building, then we supplement that with, we burn some straw, so you get actually some good pump and smoke, but it's still gray. It's still an organic, natural product burning. And then in the Class A building, that's the whole point and purpose, is that you're burning untreated wood and straw because it's safer. However, it doesn't replicate what we fight in real life, because in real life, we're not fighting those organic materials. We're fighting synthetic materials.
Yeah, a lot of petroleum-based materials, a lot of synthetic
like what?
materials.
Explain to the viewer what products are you seeing in people's houses that are off-gassing?
So just about everything, not only within the home, but that the home is made out of. Like we talked about FDIC, I know we'll bring that up a little bit later, but they talked about our mid-rises, that there's not only the contents, but all the siding and the materials they're using to construct those buildings are all petroleum-based products. Even though some of the structural members are fire resistive, a lot of the external components, the fit and finish stuff, is all petroleum-based. So we're seeing much higher temperatures. We're seeing a lot of carcinogens. But on top of that, like the chemicals, there's thousands of chemicals within each structure fire that we go to that you can't even see, that you're not even aware. You can shine a flashlight up and see the smoke, but that's all fuel, right? And so it's much more hazardous than even like propane or natural gas in some ways, because it can lead to extreme fire behavior.
Mm-hmm. And when you say chemicals, we're talking about every product of combustion off gases, and there's different gases and chemicals that come off of these materials. So even this table, if it's on fire, it will off gas these chemicals. But plastics especially.
Yeah, so you go to home, we've got couches, tables, everything, nothing is made out of, organic material anymore. As far as, you go to Walmart and buy anything that you buy there is synthetic. Mm-hmm. Well, all that stuff's on top of that. We've got batteries, and now lithium-ion batteries that can, just continue to contribute to that extreme fire behavior that we're seeing. But yeah, the academy, like you guys were, back to that. I've always been a part of it just because it gives me an opportunity to get to know these guys. We've got such a high influx of folks coming through, and I've always encouraged other people to get out there as much as they can, because that's really my only way to get to know you before you hit the floor, right? But then, training officer, like you had mentioned, that's going to be another way for me to continue those relationships. For you coming in, like you're going to get to do, I know you're setting up the barbecue for these new recruits, and just you talked about culture, and like there's a lot of things we're trying to accomplish within the academy. Not only our skills and abilities, but also you're going to throw the barbecue with all your cadets, so get to regroup and do something nice for these new cadets coming through, and allow your families to get to know their families. But there's rather than just showing up your 10 shifts a month, I always see a lot of value, and I think we'll get to the fire in a minute here, but there's a lot that happened on the fire that went very well because we had already built those relationships. We'd been in that environment together multiple times, and so it was really just get to work and let the pieces fall into place.
Okay, so you bring up a lot of really good points, and I really think that the success of our recruit academies, which obviously leads into the success of our recruits as they develop on in their careers. My personal take, and I challenge anybody to argue with me on this point, is that the success is conducive to the connection that the RTOs and TOs have with the actual recruits themselves. Yeah. And I think that is because we have a state-of-the-art facility. We have reps. We do whatever in the academy that we do for the success. However, it's only as conducive as how much Russ wants to connect with you and all of the other TOs connect with you. But we're also using that as an opportunity for our younger training officers to start building up their development into becoming actual training officers, because there's a little difference between recruit academies and then teaching at quarterly training with guys that have been on for 20 plus years. There's a little bit of a dynamic difference. However, the content's still the content. So I really think that the content being delivered by people who care as much as you guys do and want to connect with people is why I would put us up against anybody. And that's humble brag.
Yeah, I think on that fire there, for me, the benefit to me being at the training center, in particular, it definitely attributes to my success in the real world. On that fire, I remember we rolled out of the station very calm, realized pretty quickly we were going to be first in, came up over the hill, dropped down. I think it had just self-vented out the window because I did see a large column of flame followed by smoke, and we had labeled it a working fire at that point in time. Came down the hill, made the turn, and met 59 at the intersection. But all of those pieces that need to go into place, I tied in with 59 as we were, passing a hydrant, had them grab a supply, meaning to tag a hydrant on your way into the scene so we have a water supply. Had my second engine do that. My third engine staged real quick right behind that, and had them come into the scene for Rick, which that's rapid intervention crew. And they're there. They have to be there and in place before we can go interior, unless it's an incipient stage fire, meaning like a room and contents small trash can on fire, or known life safety. We arrived on scene. We tied in with the resident, and all those gears started going on motion. I really attribute that to me being at the training center, because it was just, I've done it so many times over and over and over that it was just natural,
So you're saying the repetition of leaving the station, arriving to the scene, already having your thoughts collected in your head, and then when you start, delivering orders, everything is just in this very conducive, very pragmatic.
Yeah, I know what's coming
organized.
next. Not only that, but I knew what to expect of Mason, because I'd been in that situation. I've been through those evolutions with him many times. Yeah. And so I knew what to expect out of him and everybody around me. Did my on-scene size up, got in, tied up with the homeowner.
Let me interrupt you really quick, because I'm already doing it. I actually have a recording of your size up, and I sent it to you. And I think before we get too far, let me just explain to the viewers that the reason I brought these two good people on here isn't only just to talk about the academy, but because obviously we've talked about you guys have worked together in the academy, how that translates to the actual engine company operations. Well, these two are actually working together one day. It was actually morning. It was early morning.
Yeah, just after shift change.
Just after shift change, but you guys were working together, and what happened is you guys get toned out of structure fire. You guys don't normally work together. However, you're already familiar with each other because of the academy.
Right.
And then that turned into you're en route to a working structure fire, and you guys are going to be first on scene. So the really cool thing, and the whole reason why I wanted to bring you two together on this, is because let's talk about how this translates, but I also want to talk about, especially for Mason, like, what did you see, what did you feel, and then how did that compare to what you were trained on? Because again, and thank you, you did a great job of explaining, like, all these different chemicals that are off-gassing these structures. So it's a thicker, darker, blacker smoke. It's thicker, darker, and blacker because it's less oxygen being consumed because of all these products of combustion off-gassing all these chemicals. Mm-hmm. So that was your size up. I guess I have it recorded. I sent it to you because I'm in my backyard. Got my dogs, got my cup of coffee, and boom, my Active 911 goes off, which is an app that tells us about incidents. So I'm reading it, and I'm like, well, I saw the roster this morning, and I know you're working, and he's going to get his first structure fires in AC where you're first in on scene. So I went and got my radio out of my truck, turned it on, and I got to hear you. I got to hear all the traffic. And let me just say two quick things before we go into a little more of what you saw and your decisions and then what you saw. All I heard over all the radio traffic was, again, something that we pride ourselves on in this organization is cool, calm, collected radio traffic. From every engine checking on, the battalion chief, which is Chief Brad Davis, who was my battalion chief for a year, somebody I hold in very high regard, and he is always calm, collected. Mm-hmm. And the other cool thing about Chief Davis is that he knows who he has on his crews. He knows them very intimately. Again, that culture being about understanding your people. He knows who he has coming, and hey, go to work, do your thing. And then when he comes on scene, he knows what he's getting is a pretty polished product. So you get on scene first, gave a brilliant size up, cool, calm, collected, organized and detailed, but yet short, unlike our podcast when we're together. And then you guys go to work. So let me ask you this. Did you give Mason any direct orders from the engine?
No, and we'd kind of gone over that in the academy as far as just listen to my size up. Don't jump out of the engine and rush off to work because you may miss something. The firefighters are sitting a lot of times backwards arriving into a scene, so they're not actually seeing what I'm seeing from the front windshield. And so when I do my size up, a lot of times I'm including information that's going to be key to him as far as pulling a line, transitional fire attack, and performing a 360 standby for. So with him, like in that size up, he knew I'm pulling an 1 3/4 cross lay. I'm going to pull it to the front door, do a transitional attack, meaning put water on the fire, wait for me to do my 360. On my 360, tied in with the homeowner. But we got to keep in mind too, like just because they tell us everybody's out, that's not always the case. You were a victim at one point of CO poisoning, and that can confuse people. They may believe that everybody's out, but forget because they have CO poisoning that there's still people in there, or they may have a medical emergency or have dementia or something along those lines. So we can't always trust what they're telling us. So
and life safety is always our number one priority.
So I did my 360 to check for windows, identify the location of the fire. There was 5 or 6 dogs in the backyard. So that was another component. Came back around, tied in with Mason. He was getting water on the fire already. And they're tell me, I'd like to kind of see your vantage point. I know mine, but what was your vantage point from where you were at?
Yeah.
Well, let's start. Let me just do this really quick. Let's start from you're in the back of the engine.
Okay.
Boom. This is your first structure fire where there's potential for an interior attack, which we always say over the years, like, oh, you're not going to get those types of fires anymore. But we're starting to see a lot of the current recruits are getting a lot of those fires. I know Cammy's had some. Emilio's had some. Chris Smith, I believe. Now you. So, I mean, we do get these fires. So you're positioned in the backseat of the engine and you pull up to the fire. I want to hear everything you were thinking and feeling all the way up to when you got inside and finished it up.
Okay. So there I was.
And that's all the time we have to
Here's your moment.
I do want to just take a couple steps back. Just want to tag on to what Russ was saying about getting dressed and getting out in that morning. It was, like he said, it was so smooth. It was, we had done the repetitions before. We'd done drills several times. It was, I'm sure my heart rate was up a little bit, but for the most part, I was not thinking. I was just putting the gear on like I had done, 100 times by that point, hop in the engine, and all of us just we just cruised out of there. So like you said, I was sitting backwards. I didn't see anything. So we got on scene, we pull up, and then I'm sitting there listening to Russ's do his size up, and he said, we're going to pull a line for a transitional fire attack. So that tells me what I'm going to do. I'm going to pull that line, do a transitional fire attack while he's finishing up his 360 going around the house. So hop out the engine, looking at the house, I see, normal car in the driveway, and I see the homeowner. She's sitting on the ground. She's clearly distressed, and she's got a dog in there. So I asked her if she knew if there was anyone in there. She said there's nobody in there. I asked her to kind of step off to the side, and maybe.
And that's a pretty awesome point you bring up, because that's a seasoned move for a guy in your first fire, 6 months on the job, to have enough wherewithal that you're still doing everything you're programmed and trained to do. However, you still had enough to, hey, is there anybody else inside? You weren't just going moth to a flame. So that's a great point that you make, and I'm glad you did that.
She was a little bit in my way too, so I wanted her to.
You didn't have to say that, Mason. You could have just taken the compliment and ran with it.
Very nice.
All right, continue.
Yeah. But I did. We had to figure that out, and like you said, we can't always necessarily trust what she says. But had she said yes, then we might be going a different direction with what we were doing there. So, off of the Alpha Delta side, off of the right corner, was the bedroom window had been broken out from the heat. So I had access with my hose I could spray water into the window and get it up into the closet area where I knew that fire was. I could see the flames. And I'm sitting there and I'm kind of hitting it for a little bit, and then smoke is pouring out, and you can see there's some sort of transition with the flames and the smoke that's coming out of the window and shooting up as Russ is coming around. So he gets back around, tells me what he saw, and with dogs, and there's nothing else. There's no other openings. There's no other flow pass entries into the building. And then we were just waiting for Rick to get established at that point. I'd be remiss if I didn't mention Justin Vanetta, who was engineering for us that day and pumping for us. So
another one of our recruit training officers, and
yeah.
he's another one with Russ going up to training officer this fall. So
yeah. And I'd worked with him a handful of times on the floor, but mostly at the recruit academy. So we were familiar with each other's styles of how we operated, at least a little bit.
Sure.
Yeah.
So he was killing it, helping me out with my hose and kind of working out some of the kinks that I may have had when that little stretch to the door. He made sure that the door was open for us and busted it if it was locked, which he didn't need to. So, and then also get me water at the same time. So he really killed it on that one as well. So yeah, Russ came back around, and then we were getting ready and went on air and then made entry through the door.
Awesome. So when you went through the front door, again, we try to replicate, we try to be as realistic as we can with the academy, but you get through the front door, can you see anything?
No.
It's just thick black smoke.
The front door, the door kicked open, and that was it. Yeah, just thick black smoke all the way to the floor. So
Yeah, you couldn't see a hand in front of your face.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's real. That's real life. And that's what's really cool to talk about this, because a lot of our viewers don't understand that side of things. So how are you finding, let's say hypothetically you didn't already spray some water on the outside and know which direction to go. How would you hypothetically use the smoke, if you can, or use whatever other senses you have to find the seat of the fire?
In that case, I'm just following the heat, because that's going to lead me right to the fire. Follow the smoke and the heat. If there's any variation in the smoke, I'm going to go where it's the thickest, because that's where the fire is.
Because sometimes we can follow those flow paths using that neutral plane and that air tracking of the smoke moving from the cool air, moving low and in, and the hot superheated gases moving up and out. You can kind of do that. But if you're in a position like this where
You had it all the way down to the floor, it was was no, yeah.
Yeah, so that's a very dangerous position to be in. However, you've been trained, so you had a charge hose line in your hands. You guys are moving to the room, and then what was the heat difference between the front door to when you got to the actual fire room?
Significant. Yeah, much hotter right at that fire room. So it's kind of a longer hallway. The fire room was off to the right, a bathroom in front, and another bedroom off the left-hand side. And then right just in that little pocket, those doors were shut, but you could feel all the heat coming out. That fire room door had been burned out. But it was hot right there. You could tell.
And I know from my vantage point as well, I know just being at the recruit training officer at the academy, I know what to expect from a guy in his first structure fire, because not only was I there not too long ago, and I definitely was the guy yanking the whole engine with me as I went into the front door, the weather stripping and my headset, and you ask anybody that worked with me, that's exactly who I was to a T starting out. I was very excited. And
if only some captains told you, hey, slow down.
Yeah, if only. If just only, about everyone.
If only.
So, but with that, I know my excitement level when I first started. And so I know what to expect from these guys and gals, but I've also been out at the training center with them, so I know what to expect out of Mason. And I know when we made entry through that front door, he can't see anything, but I've got a tool at my disposal that I can see what's going on. You know, I've got a thermal imaging camera, and so I know. Like there was a point when he went through the front door, grabbed onto him and said, hang on just a minute. And he was doing all the right things, moving exactly how he should be. But when you go into that environment, you really don't know what, like after the smoke cleared and everything was settled, we actually had a motorcycle in there. We had couches and tables and all this stuff that, you know, we were completely unaware of making entry. But when I grabbed onto his jacket and put the thermal imaging camera out in front of him, you know, you were able to see exactly what I was seeing.
Yeah.
And that gave you a clear direction to the room. And we were able to get there a lot quicker than, you know, you and I, without that tool, trying to navigate that room, you know, right-hand surge and bumping into everything.
No, but that's good. And because you mentioned a couple of things. One, yeah, you can have a guy like Russ Smith who's going 100 mile an hour all the time. But like, if I could channel some of your passion or bottle some of that up and sell it, I'd be retired tomorrow. But everybody has passion. How that passion comes out is different in everybody. But
Right.
But I mean, how cool is it though that you got to go into this fire with him? You guys have done all this training. You're kind of a mutt crew that day, but it just goes to show, I think, that one of the strengths in our organization is that you can put any crew together. We're all trained the same. Everybody should be able to, you know, it's kind of like a puzzle. Like, yeah, some of the pieces are a little different shapes, sizes, but with a little bit of training ahead of time, everybody pieces in nice and neat, and then you get this beautiful picture of nobody was hurt, no victims found. Had there been victims, I assure that these two people right here would have 100% given anybody the best opportunity they could have had. So you get into the fire room. Is there still fire still left in that room?
It was still pretty smoky even when that window cleared out. So there's a closet kind of deep in the corner. We figured out later on that's where the fire was coming from. I couldn't see flames at that point.
But you still had that much heat and that darkest smoke.
Yeah.
It's pretty impressive. But that's the structure fires. That's the house fires that we're going into day in, day out. Not that we fight house fires every day, but those are the conditions that we're running into. And that is just
en route, we had reports of ammunition and chambered rounds and in a handgun, I think. And
there's no clear-cut call. It's never just this is it. There's always extras. That's the world we live in.
That was probably one of the most fun moments of that whole fire was walking up, you know, doing my 360 coming around, and you had that excitement on your face, but you said something to the effect of, "Hey, Russ, there's ammunition going off in that room." I know, let's go. And that was actually a very memorable moment for me. You know, you've got all these different things going on top of it. Where not only are we progressing toward the fire, but we've got our next in engine company that's, you know, secured our supply. They're coming in right behind us in the same conditions, performing a search, you know, for victims. And it was, for me, it was a lot of fun. Probably one of the most memorable fires I've had so far, just being able to be in that environment with you and then navigate some of those challenges, you know, along the way. And see the excitement, like you said. Like, I can see what you're saying because I'm seeing it in these guys now, where I see that. And it's tough, right? I think it's worth mentioning that, yes, there's excitement, but we also realize this is the worst day in someone's life. You know that for that, like you said, that gal out front, she was obviously in distress, and if that was my home, I would be too. That would be a horrible day.
That's a good point.
But this is what we sign up to do, and this is what we're excited to do, and so for us, it is something we look forward to.
It was gonna happen whether we were there or not. So might as well be
there. You go.
Let's try to think of it that way.
Yeah. And again, I couldn't think of two better people to bring on the podcast and talk about an incident like that, because they're happening. It does happen, and the brilliant part is y'all were prepared for it. So I appreciate you two both for that and for coming on. Let me also mention this, that as soon as these structure fires are done, because of all these hazardous gases, they're covered in cancer. That covers your gear. So the first thing we do after these is we decon ourselves, which that's maybe a whole nother podcast, but they get them into the warehouse, and I got to tell you, we have some of the most talented people working in our warehouse, between Eric Trujillo, the manager, Yvonne, and Josh Gentle. Josh was on here on a podcast once because the dude has a bachelor's degree in math, so that's a whole nother level of smarts. But those good people, they clean all the gear, try to get rid of as much cancer as they can, get them back to you guys in a timely amount of time. And let me say this about Manager Trujillo, is that you mentioned FDIC, came with us to FDIC, does some networking, meets up with some other companies with these with our bunker gear, and then our actual direct reps. This is the first time, even before COVID, that we have had all the recruits' bunker gear in 3 weeks before the academy is over. That is incredibly impressive. So a big shout out to the warehouse and the good people in there. So
yeah, they're doing. I think
It's huge.
on that note, I feel like it's worth saying too. Like our recruits coming in now are really not aware of the workload that we had before. I know our call volume's going up, but in the past we used to, a lot of departments out there are cleaning their own turnouts, or maintaining their own equipment, testing their own hose. When I got on there, we had our workload throughout the day was a little higher in regard to like tasks that we had to complete. And those guys and gals are the hose testing. I can't believe they took that on, because that's a lot of work.
Yeah.
And they're out there with their forklifts and everything else, sweating out in the heat, doing all that for us. And I think that's pretty cool. On top of mask fit, they keep taking more.
They do
and more
everything.
And more on.
Our warehouse does everything.
Everything.
So let's pause so the audience can give them all a big round of applause.
There we
And then, hey, Yvonne just got married too.
Oh, wow.
So I mean, there's big things happening in that warehouse.
I heard
so,
that. Congrats, Yvonne.
Yeah, congrats to Yvonne and Chris. And so anyway, thank you guys for being on here. We got to wrap it up because you got to get out to the academy and you got to get home to your beautiful family. And happy 1-year birthday to your daughter.
Thank you.
A week ago was a party, but when was the
about
birthday?
a week ago. Same day.
Same
June,
day,
right?
June. Yeah.
Yep.
That's awesome.
Happy
So our
birthday, June.
families are growing, okay, in more ways than one. Check out our website for applications. Those who want to go fight dirty black, smoke and house fires, and check the website czfire.gov. Like and subscribe, as the hip YouTubers say, to the podcast, the CAFMA Connect. And we're going to see everybody here relatively soon. I don't know who's doing the podcast next week, but I think y'all could probably use a break from me. So anyway, thank you guys for being on. Like and subscribe. See you later.